Hey Cornerstone, welcome to this week's edition of the Cornerstone Connection. One quick thing to remember, we've been talking about it, but in case you haven't seen or forgot, this coming Sunday, January 29th, we'll be doing an annual meeting after the church service. We'll be getting some updates on finances, be getting some updates exactly on when Josh is coming, spoiler alert, March 5th, and we'll be voting to affirm Mike Vetters to be joining the elders. So everybody's welcome as always, but if you're a member especially, we'd love to have you there to be able to receive this info and also vote on some of these things. This week on The Connection, and really for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be continuing our conversation on change. Again, some people love it, some people really don't love it, but last week we talked about the idea that change is coming, and it's easiest when we acknowledge that change is coming, when we're open about it, and when we open the door to talk about it. You know, one thing that we know about change is that it doesn't work to ignore it. The landscape is littered with organizations that have tried to ignore change. When's the last time you rented a movie from Blockbuster, huh? Or when's the last time you took a roll of film into a Kodak location to get it developed? It's been a while. The truth is that change is inevitable, and it has been even since before humans were created. I'm looking for my Bible. I put it down. Here's my Bible. We're in Genesis some today. Genesis chapter 1. Before there was creation, there wasn't really change. Genesis chapter 1 says that the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep. Now God was there and God wasn't changing, but nothing else was changing either. And then let's see what happens as we move along. In verse 3, God says, "Let there be light." And God starts to create stuff. And then at the end of that, in verse 5, at the end of that little section in verse 5, there was evening and there was morning the first day. Now, how there was evening and morning before there was a sun and all the rest, I don't quite know. But all of a sudden, there is some change. There's this evening, there's this morning, whether or not that's a 24-hour day or exactly, there's change as God begins to create. And as God moves through creation, the change continues as well. And then in verse 14, we see this. "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years." God is putting things in motion as he creates. And when things are in motion, there is change. From the beginning of creation, God has made change inevitable for us. So then we could ask ourselves the question, why? Why did God do that? God could have made a static world. He could have made in which nothing or nothing really of consequence ever changed. He could have made a world that was the same. You know, here's the thing, Cornerstone. In a world like that, anything that would approach trust would be really one-dimensional. It wouldn't really be trust, even as we think of it. In the book Pre-Landra, it's part of C.S. Lewis's space trilogy. And in this book, there's a character, Ransom, and he goes to the planet Venus. And in this planet Venus, he finds a world that's untainted by sin. And he meets the queen of the world, this woman who lives on an island of basically vegetation. It's like a huge seaweed island that you can live on and has plants and animals and everything on it. But it's an island and it's floating on the top of the sea, which encompasses the entire planet. And this woman, the queen of that planet, is forbidden to spend the night on the fixed land. There's one island, one point of fixed land in this planet, in Pre-Landra, and she's not to spend the night there. And just as Adam and Eve in our world were tempted to eat of the tree, she was tempted to spend the night on the fixed land rather than on the floating islands, which rose and fell with the waves. And she's tempted throughout the story by a character that is that's reminding us of the devil and the temptation that he brings. And unlike Eve, this woman, this queen of the world Pre-Landra, resists the temptation. And afterward, she looks back and she says, "The reason for not yet living on the fixed land is now so plain. How could I wish there except because it was fixed? And why should I desire the fixed except to make sure to be able on one day to command where I should be the next and what should happen to me? It was to reject the wave, to draw my hand out of Melediels, which is God in this story, to say to him, not thus, but thus, to put in our own power what times should roll toward us. Lewis paints this picture for us of the fact that change is inevitable. And because change is inevitable, we have the opportunity to trust God. Change is inevitable for us as individuals. Change is inevitable for Cornerstone as a church. And as change comes, we have the opportunity to receive what God is bringing us without fighting it. And when we do that, we can know that the one who created the sun and the moon and the stars, these things which mark change in the heavens for us, the God who created the seasons has also declared that those seasons and that change is good. And Cornerstone, change is inevitable. We can't stop it from coming. But as it comes, we can continue to greet change from God rather than fight against it. We can continue to trust him. So Cornerstone, as we keep talking about change, I want you to think just about in your own life the fact that change is inevitable. And how does that open the door for us to trust God at deeper and deeper levels? Thanks for taking some time to join us on The Connection today, and we'll see you this Sunday.